So Donald Trump was held in contempt and fined for violating his gag order 9 times. It was $1,000 per count, so that was $9,000, which is nothing in Donald Trump's world, but he's still pretty upset about it. Take a look at this clip.
Is not only unique, it's totally unconstitutional. I'm the Republican candidate for President of the United States. I received this honor in record time. Nobody's ever gone faster. It's never happened. Nobody's ever got the numbers that we got. And I'm sitting in a courthouse all day long listening to this stuff. And everybody knows, as far as everybody is concerned, if you read the great legal scholars and experts, everybody said this is a trial that is nonsense. It should have never been brought. That's showing loud and clear. But you have a judge who's totally conflicted, totally, absolutely conflicted, that he's rushing this case through. I'll tell you what, somebody just told me they'd never sat for such a long period of time in a courthouse before. It's ridiculous. I'm supposed to be in Georgia. I'm supposed to be in New Hampshire. I'm supposed to be in Ohio and lots of other places. And they have me sitting here for a Biden trial. It's a Biden trial. And I never saw so many prosecutors. They're all sitting in the room over nothing, over absolutely nothing. There's no crime.
Okay, so now he's back to saying that there's no crime. No crime. The other day, I showed you guys this clip of him saying that a president needed full immunity.
We have a big case today. This judge isn't allowing me to go. We have a big case today in the Supreme Court on presidential immunity. A president has to have immunity. If you don't have immunity, you just have a ceremonial president. You won't have immunity.
So if there's no crime, he doesn't need immunity, and he really needs to make up his mind which way he wants to go with this, and that's why I can never be a Trump supporter, because I would catch him in his bullshit. I lack the ability to jump through those hoops. When he starts wanting everyone to play mental gymnastics, I'm one that gets to that hoop and goes, no, this doesn't make sense to me. But there are still people out there buying this hook, line, and sinker, and when you put the evidence in front of their face and show them him clearly contradicting himself, they'll still somehow they'll manage to roll with it. But notice how he always talks about all these great legal scholars, all these experts. I talked to people. I passed a guy in the hallway, and he told me he'd never seen nothing like it before. It just reminds me of all the years I played in bars as a musician, and I would see somebody get kicked out. You would clearly see them doing something, clearly see them, getting kicked out, and there would be one drunk in the corner, I didn't see him do nothing. Well, that doesn't matter, pal. It doesn't matter how many people thinks that it's bullshit. You're on trial, okay? And you have to sit there and you have to take it. That's part of it. You're the one that got yourself in this mess. So I don't really feel sorry for him when he says, oh, I should be out on the campaign trail. Yeah, you should. And you could if you hadn't have broke the law. You could if you hadn't have done all these things. If you'd have just accepted defeat back in 2020 and said, you know what, the American people have spoken and they've chose Joe Biden, but I'm going to come back 4 years later and I'm going to remind you guys that you made a mistake and you hadn't have went out of your way to overturn an election and do all the things that you done, then yeah, you should be on the campaign trail, but that's why you're not. And notice, of course, he goes into, it's a Biden trial. It's a Biden trial. And then he turns around and he bashes the judge. He's talking about being fined for violating his gag order, and in the same breath is sitting there bashing the judge. But this next clip, to me, I'm embarrassed for the guy, honestly. Just take a look at this one.
Gag order is totally unconstitutional. Can't even allow articles to be put in. As an example, these are articles that were over the last day and a half. They're very good articles. They say the case is a sham and it shouldn't even be tried. It shouldn't have been submitted. And I don't even know if you're allowed to put them in. We have a gag order, which to me is totally unconstitutional. I'm not allowed to talk, but people are allowed to talk about me. So they can talk about me, they can say whatever they want, they can lie, but I'm not allowed to say anything. I just have to sit back and look at why a conflicted judge has ordered me to have a gag order. I don't think anybody's ever seen anything like this. I'd love to talk to you people. I'd love to say everything that's on my mind, but I'm restricted because I have a gag order. And I'm not sure that anybody's ever seen anything like this before. And even having to do with articles, somebody writes an article. If I read every one of these articles incomplete, I read some of it and I'll look at headlines, all good headlines, and the case is a sham. But I can't read the whole thing. I'd be reading, this is like reading.
So he actually printed out articles. He printed articles and thought that he could sit there in a courtroom and interfere and interrupt everybody and say, wait a minute, I've got these articles that I read online. Try that. Anybody out there that supports Donald Trump and you're mad at me right now for making this video, try that if next time you go to court. Just print up a bunch of articles or have a bunch of your friends write letters about how you're innocent. And then right during the middle of the proceedings, just stand to your feet and say, oh, hold on, my friends wrote this letter for me, and see how far it gets you. I promise you it wouldn't get you far at all, and it shouldn't get Donald Trump far at all. And this idea that they're taking away his free speech is one of the most ridiculous things that I've ever heard, but it's not stopped him from saying it, because he's on Truth Social saying this. The judge has taken away my constitutional right to free speech. I am the only presidential candidate in history to be gagged. The whole trial is rigged and taken away my freedom of speech. The highly conflicted judge is rigging the presidential election of 2024 election interference. So, again, just like he did in 2020, he's already laying the groundwork to tell you that the whole thing was rigged. Because when he loses in November, he's going to say it was because of all these trials that kept him off the campaign trail and kept him away from doing what he was supposed to do. So they've taken away his free speech, but he's also on Truth Social saying this. This is a total witch hunt, hours of sitting down and listening to nothing except exoneration and lies. The trial is going by like a speeding bullet because the judge is working hard to make all of his friends happy. Merchant is rigged, crooked, and above all and without question conflicted. It's a disgrace to our country. They have taken away my right to free speech, election interference. Well, there's a whole lot of people out there that's going to buy into that. They're going to say that they're shutting him up and they're not allowing him to speak and they're violating his First Amendment rights. But I promise you, folks, they're not. I actually have in front of me a copy of the United States Constitution, so we're going to read the First Amendment here, okay? Amendment 1, Congress. That's really the key word, okay? Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or the press, or the right of the people to peacefully assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. It says Congress shall make no law. It doesn't say that a judge isn't allowed to issue a gag order. It doesn't say that a judge is not allowed to say to someone on trial, you're not allowed to talk about this case. That is nowhere in the First Amendment. And this guy owns his own social media platform, and he is truthing, or whatever the hell you want to call it, from it every day. He's out there every day saying this shit. He's on every major news network in the country, sitting there talking about what's going on in the trial. I mean, that's who you see. We're seeing his side of the story more so than anybody's. I mean, really, because it's not filmed, we're not seeing what's going on in the courtroom. We're hearing him come out and give his side of it, and every major news network and every outlet in this country is on him. How can he sit and say that he's being gagged and he's being shut up and his freedom of speech is being taken away when Congress didn't make no law against it, and he's out there everywhere doing his thing? It's so ridiculous to me that people buys into this. Yeah, they took his freedom of speech away. How many times did you hear from him today? He's all that's in the news feed. He dominates the news. He's everywhere. And he's talking as loud as he wants to. And he's calling out witnesses. He's calling out judges. And if you think, I know so many people out there would go, oh, that's, hell, he's just giving them hell, man. Trump don't care. Trump won't back down. Okay, then try on his act for size yourself. The next time you have to go to court, do it the way Trump does it. Walk in there, just interrupt him, stand up with some articles you printed offline, tell the judge he's crooked and conflicted. When you get back home, get on Facebook, get on Twitter, wherever you post from, and just start running down everybody in the trial, running down all the witnesses. See how far you get with it. You won't get far. Donald Trump sits back and says everything is rigged, but from the outside looking in, I'm going, man, it sure looks like it's all rigged in your favor. Because I've never seen anybody get away with as much shit as he has, and he's still out there. And there's still people, well, he still run for president. Yeah. I mean, I put him in president, he still run. Yeah. I would not be, nothing would shock me at this point. Nothing would shock me. The dude could be in a prison cell, and the camera would be on him, and he would be talking about how that his free speech has been violated. You know, I'm finally starting to realize after all these years, from the time I was a little kid, and this is another story into itself, but I could make a whole video series on this. But back when I was a little kid, I watched Helter Skelter, the movie, for the very first time. It scared me to death as a kid. And after that, I just began studying Charles Manson. And I read every book there is on him. I've watched every documentary. It's just it's a story, for whatever reason, that I've always been fascinated with. But I used to hear Sharon Tate's sister sit and talk about how that Charles Manson made a mockery of the court. and made a mockery out of everything and sat and laughed in their faces. He ordered people to brutally butcher her pregnant sister, and they sit there and they laughed and they sang songs and they danced down the hallway. And she used to talk, I used to hear videos of her talking about how bad that was. And I used to say to myself, man, that would feel pretty bad. That would be horrible. And now we're seeing a guy who was once upon a time president of the United States and wants to be again, we're seeing him make a mockery out of the system. We're seeing him laugh right in our faces, falling asleep, farting, shitting his pants, doing everything he can to distract from the fact that he's the one on trial. When he says Americans have never seen anything like it, that's the only thing he's got right. We've never seen anything like this, but it's because of what he did. And I'm tired of him projecting onto us what he did. I'm tired of him sitting back and, oh, people have told me, all kinds of people have said it. I read an article. I was at the urinal. A guy looked over at me and said, I've never seen nothing like it. Well, he probably didn't see anything in that case, but you know what I'm saying. It's one of the most, it's going to take us years, folks. We'll all be old and gray. I already am gray, but we'll all be old. And we'll be just sitting on the front porch watching the wheels go by, and we'll still be trying to explain this shit.